All right, guys. And the next few videos that you're going to see will be the lecture that was supposed to be taught on February 8th, 2022. However, I was sick, as you know. So here's the few videos. Just to let you know, this video playlist will only consist of things that is finishing up chapter 2. Some things I already did, some things I didn't do. We'll do chapter 3 on February 18th class. So it says, when the range of the data is large, the data must be grouped into classes that are more than 1 unit in width, and which is called a grouped frequency distribution. For a grouped frequency distribution, each class will have limits, a lower limit, and an upper limit. It is essential to find the boundaries, which is used for the histogram, the midpoint, which is used for a frequency polygon, and the measures of variation, as well as the measures of central tendency, which we'll see in chapter 3, and the width of the classes for group data, which is the distance between each and every class. So what we're going to do is we're going to first learn how to find the boundaries, the midpoint, and the width for a class, for a single class. Now, it depends what kind of numbers we have. If we have whole numbers, to find the lower boundary, it is the lower class limit minus 0.5. And to find the upper boundary, it is the upper class limit plus 0.5. One number after the decimal, I should say, it is the lower boundary the lower boundary is equal to the lower limit minus 0.05. And the upper boundary equals to the upper limit plus 0.05. And we've seen these things already back in chapter 1, section 2, when it came to finding the boundaries for continuous data, which is quantitative data that is used for measuring. The midpoint is used for the estimate value of a class, very important in chapter 3. And to find the midpoint, you can use either or. The lower limit plus the upper limit divided by 2, or you can use the lower class boundary plus the upper class boundary divided by 2. And this right here is the symbol for my midpoint, x of m, or xm if you want to be more mathematical. And to find the width of a single class, which is the distance between classes, the width is the difference between the upper boundary and the lower boundary, such as width equals to upper boundary minus lower boundary. So in this first video, we're just going to find the boundaries, the midpoints, and the width for the following classes that are below. (7A). This is my class from 125 to 131. This 125 is my lower class limit. I'm going to label it as follows. Lower limit. And this 131 is my upper limit. So if I want to find my boundaries, and because these are whole numbers, I must use the whole number boundary formula. So I'm going to call my lower boundary as LB. And my lower boundary equals to the lower limit, which is 125. And that's going to be minus 0.5. 125 minus 0.5 is 124.5. To find my upper class boundary, which I'm going to call UB, that is going to be equal to the upper class limit, which is 131. And that's going to be plus 0.5. And that will equal to 131.5. So that means my boundaries, keep that in blue, actually, let me make that plural, will go from 124.5 to 131.5. And that is the answer to this question. Well, to this part of the question, because we have to find the midpoint, and then the class width. Now, for the midpoint, I'm going to use the limits because my midpoint, which is x of m, is the lower class limit, which is 125, plus the upper class limit, which is 131, and we're dividing that by 2. Add first, then divide. 125 plus 131 is 256. 256 divided by 2 is 128. And once again, if you use the class boundaries, you'll have the same answer as well. There'll be no difference. And let's find the width. The width is the difference between the upper boundary and the lower boundary. So to find my width, that is going to be 131.5. And please use the boundaries. Do not use the class limits. Minus 124.5. And when you subtract those two, we have 7. So my class width is 7. And that's how we find the boundaries, the midpoint, and the width. For the next one, we're going from 16.3 to 18.5. The 16.3 is the lower limit. The 18.5 is the upper limit. To find the boundaries, we follow the formulas as such. This is one number after the decimal. So for the lower boundary, that is going to equal to the lower limit, which is 16.3, minus 0.05. And that is equal to 16.25. For the upper boundary, which I'm going to call UB, that is equal to the upper class limit, which is 18.5. And that's going to be plus 0.05. And that equals to 18.55. So those are my boundaries. 16.25 to 18.55. My midpoint is next, and I'm once again going to use the limits. So it is going to be the lower limit, which is 16.3, plus the upper limit, which is 18.5. And then we're going to divide that by 2. Add the tops first. 16.3 plus 18.5 is 34.8. 34.8 divided by 2 is 17.4. And that is the midpoint. Let's rewrite that again as 17.4. And to find the class width, it is the upper limit, which is 18.55, minus the lower limit, which is 16.25. And that's going to equal to 2.3. So my class width is 2.3. And that's it, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.